we have Mike and Cindy said, thanks for the update and the invitation. Need to listen. Speaking of which, tips on sharpening a roughing gouge. Kim, you still with us?
Howdy.
Howdy. Tips on sharpening a roughing gouge.
Oh, I use my Wolverine jig. No, I don't. What do I do? Oh, I don't have any of my sharpening stuff here because I don't have any room for it. But how I did my Harbor Freight ones is, and I don't know if this is correct, it's just what I found on YouTube. I would lay the handle in the Wolverine jig, and then just lay it on the wheel and see what angle is at, and then you roll it. Try not to move it side to side. You keep it nice and centered on the wheel and just go side to side. Now I think, Eddie, you were talking earlier how you kind of curve your roughing gouges. Like, I don't have sharp up wings like this. I kind of slightly bring them back a little bit so that way I can get a little bit more of this kind of movement out of it. I'm not a technical person, so asking somebody else about sharpening would probably be bad.
You drifted it into an Irish grind, did you?
No, it's just it doesn't have that sharp, how I love my Irish grind. I will with it. Okay. So yeah, I love my Irish grind, but I just took those edges off to kind of make it, especially when I first started, I kept getting catches because I wasn't using the tool properly. So I kind of, I'm going to make the tool work for me. Since I gotten used to, without those, sharp fingernail tips, I guess, I don't know what they are. I kind of just set it in the Wolverine jig and then did this. And then if I wanted to take those off a little bit, I just rolled it in a little bit more, and it would just slightly.
It's not an Irish grind. It's like a bowl grind or a bowl gouge grind.
Yes.
But
so would that be a tipping grind?
And just sit it on the bar and just my things like this. And I just put it on the wheel and I just pull it back and forth depending on this angle.
It sounds like a tipping grind to me too.
Yeah, tip and grind. We're going to call it a tip and grind. Because remember, we put a name on anything we want.
And I think I'm like the rest of y'all, where you just kind of you look at videos and see what the idea around the sharpening, and as far as like the technical angles, I kind of just experimented with really cheap gouges and lost a lot of steel on the floor because of it. But I finally got a position, and I just make a little mark on all my Wolverine jig to where it's way swept back more than a regular Irish grind is, because I'm very aggressive and I like using a lot of edge, and I just feel, for me, it's just the most versatile. So mine's not even at the degree an Irish grind would be. I don't even know what it is, but it's like you said, it is a tip and grind. I customized it to my feel and my style of turning. So I don't know. I have no idea what it is. It's what I did years ago, and I loved it, and I kept it.
And it works.
That's right, and it works.
Thank you, Kim.
I'd love to see it at some point.
Yeah, I could go grab it and bring it in and show you what it looks like.
What the edge looks like.
Yeah, what the edge looks like.
All right, thank you, Kim.
Let me add something on a roughing gouge. I know y'all are talking about sweeping the wings back on it, but the wings were designed originally to be straight up and down. The reason why is if turning a chair leg or a leg for a table, when you're going from square to round, that flat area allows you to get in there and cut all the way up to that square edge. So it allows you to get up and cut a square edge all the way to that square edge on it. And I still get the same angle. I just turn it at a slight angle to make the cut across there. So, but anyhow, that was the design. And that's the reason why the wings are straight up and down. And when I sharpen it off a platform at a 40-degree angle and just roll the tool around it.
Yeah, because you're not doing a shape, you're doing the angle.
You're just doing the angle. I put it on the platform, put it with a 40-degree, and I just go flat from one side all the way to the flat on the other side. But sometimes it starts coming back, but the main reason for those straight sides is be able to cut to a square corner when you're doing like a table leg. When you're
Okay.
roughing the table leg, to be able to cut all the way up to that edge, it's on the side, and it allows you to get all the way to that edge,
You
Eddie,
have to consider, go ahead.
and that's the
Ronnie.
purpose of the straight.
we are talking about sharpening, and we might be confusing Cindy and Mike right now because we need to know what they're sharpening with first before you can help them.
Oh, you're so right. Or you use, the questions be, are you using a jig on tools that must be constant? Kim said just now, she threw a lot of steel on the floor. That's tools on the floor. So if you're using a jig, you can control where you're going. And the jig could be just one of the pockets it's in to do a bowl gouge or a roughing gouge. And also, what kind of wheel are you using?
Well, a bunch of y'all use wheels with a like that. I personally use a Robert Sorby belt system. So, so you need to find out what they're sharpening with, so they'll know how to sharpen.
It's a good idea. If you go to Lowe's or Home Depot today and buy a new 8-inch grinder, you're going to get a 40 and a 60 grit wheel. I don't have a 40 or 60 grit wheel.
Well, that being said, too, if you go to Home Depot and you buy a grinder, you're going to buy a high-speed grinder when you need a slow-speed grinder.
Oh, they have a variable, they have a
That's a
porta cable
misnomer.
and, yeah, they have a porta cable and a Delta, which is almost identical. And they both have variable speed, 17 to 38.
Okay, but they need to know to sharpen at a slow speed rather than a high speed.
Yeah, you sharpen
a
lawnmower
misnomer,
blades at
Ronnie.
high speed.
What's that?
That's a misnomer.
Who said that?
Dane. High
Well-
speed, slow speed, that's a misnomer. That's for carbon steel, yes. High speed, no. Unless you're laying on your tool, then you're going to burn and waste your steel.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. What about the bluing of the steel? That's where we going with that.
Well, no, unless you're laying on your tool. If you're only using your tool weight for sharpening, high speed grinder is not going to affect it.
Okay, what some folks are missing here, we're talking about sharpening, not creating, not reshaping. We're talking about sharpening. And there's a whole folks out there in our audience tonight that only use hones, and they hone or polish their edges. So sharpening them is a definite no-no. But it is all dependent on what you're using and how you're doing it. I think Kim is back with those tools. Kim, oh wait, she got moved away from the mic. But
Sorry,
now
I'm
she's
trying to
back.
adjust here. All right, so let me get this adjusted really quick so you can kind of see the profile. Make me large so I can see it better on my tablet, Eddie, if you don't mind.
I thought you are large. You were. We'll go
Am I
back
not
to it.
large?
Gotta say something.
There we
Here's
go.
the spotlight.
All right, come on. My camera just does the reverse, so it's hard. All right, let me make sure it's focused. Okay, so maybe you can see the profile of, this is my new roughing gouge, and I haven't sharpened it yet. See how these are nice and even right here. Now, this one's one I have sharpened, and you can see where I just took it off. Hold on, let me get my hand in here. I just took it off slightly. So instead of it coming straight up and down, I just beveled it a little bit. That's just to my taste, I guess. I don't know what to call that.
Now you can control that grind when you're doing it. So if you want to be less of a sweep or just near the tips, you can do that.
Yes. And so obviously this one's straight from the factory. I'm trying to, it's straight from the factory, and it's nice and, crisp and sharp at that edge. And I like it. The small one I like this. That's fine. This one I just kind of customized a little bit. And here is my, sorry, I'm doing
Yes,
play.
you are. Your polymer
Yes,
clay
we can't wait for that clay.
I'm still working. I'm still working on it. All right, hold on. I'm so sorry about this is
Oh,
my,
okay.
this is my Irish grind. This is my grind. It's way swept back. Now, these squares right here are 1 inch squares, just to give you a size reference. Hold on.
Can I notice the top of the sweeps there, folks? They're high, not dipped.
Yeah, you don't want them to come down. If they come down, then you need to change how you're doing it. They can come up slightly, but never down. Mine are kind of, slightly up, but more straight.
And who controls that?
You do. I do.
I had a question on the roughing gouge. Mine, yours are very almost flat across the end. Mine has a point, I guess you'd say, more of a point on the end. See how yours are almost flat across on this one that you're showing here. Looking at it across the grind, it's almost flat. What's the difference between being flat and having a somewhat of a point?
Well, this is a roughing gouge. Roughing gouges, I don't think have points. Is that right? Like excuse me, they all kind of have you can get a V. I think they're available in V and U shaped.
Yeah, mine's you.
That's a flute.
Yeah, the flute. But I've never seen a roughing gouge unless you grind it yourself like that with like you're talking about a point like
Well, if
this.
somebody could highlight me, I've got mine and holding it up.
Oh, okay.
Who's talking?
Gary Bobbenhausen. Yeah, that's me. Okay, that's mine is kind of got a point on it, as you can see by looking there. Up here is like a pointy. It's not a real angle point, but it is a point where I've noticed on yours that yours are almost flat across. Is this
My Harbor Freight one looks exactly like that. And that was from me over time, sharpening that way. That is not getting the proper angle for that roughing gouge, and it brings those wings way back, which I still love that grind. It's funny because I have like 3 different grinds on my roughing gouges and I use them for different means, but it's that angle on that nose. You can see this one is like this, and yours is starting to take on a sharper angle. I don't know what you would call that. Put it on my
I
phone.
see your point. I mean, I
From
see what you're
spending-
saying.
It's spending too much time on the sides when you're grinding.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
Make it into a
That's
spindle
how I-
gouge.
that's how I get
Right.
Be slightly back like this, and that's what will create your point, because obviously now this and this are not straight up and down with one another. They're like that. And you can do that. Like with my Irish grind, the reason why I'm able to get it a little bit sharper on the nose is because I spend a little more time curving in my wings.
Yeah.
And that's just how I like to do it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just, that's how I do it. I'm kind of like I'll do it and then find out why it's right or wrong later on.
Kim, while you have the tool in your hand,
Yes, sir.
bring that one back up. Look at the shaft as it goes into the handle. You see that drop down or neck down? All right, now hold up that Thompson that you had, if you would, please. Look at the neck down. Oops, it doesn't have a neck down. That shaft is solid to the base.
Yep, all the way through. And
Yep.
that's what I love about this
Carter
one.
and Son is a solid.
It makes a lot of
Carter and
difference.
Son is also a solid shaft.
So is D-Way and a few other folks.
Yeah, this is Sorby. And that's another reason. This is a 89, 79 or 59. I can't remember how much I paid for it. And I'm not saying that they're cheap or anything. I'm just saying that's why sometimes some tools are going to be a little bit more expensive, because there's a lot of steel and here. It's definitely tougher. I've bent the tang on my Harbor Freight one. Matter of fact, I think I broke it out and I had to redo the handle because beginning turner and I'm aggressive and just threw it in there and it went whang. And so that is what gets people this type of roughing gouge. I see a lot on Facebook and all that where they'll actually break it. Sometimes they break it into here, and I think that's from just overreaching with the tool rest. But down here is definitely its weak point, and you have to be
Yep.
very careful on how you operate.
The full name of that tool that you're holding, Kim, is a spindle roughing gouge. It is only to be used in the spindle aspect for that
Yes.
exact reason. I broke one too. I broke the tang off my first roughing gouge, doing exactly the same thing you did.
Yeah, I think that's your initiative, that you have to do that in order to
Yep.
be initiated to be a certified, dummy.
Plus make a funnel. So once you've made a funnel and broken a tool, you're in.
Yes.
Yeah, remember, if you get a Band-Aid, you belong to Brenda's Band-Aid Brigade.
Yes. Or you can wear a splinter in your hand from doing something dumb and wear your splinter in your hand for a year and then finally cut it out yourself.
Okay, Splinter, that's like Billy Bird.
Yeah, it was. I thought it
And
was
folks, we will talk about you. There's nothing sacred here. And like Doug said, a roughing gouge or a roughing gouge can be called an oversized spindle gouge. But if we weren't family, I'd tell you what I'd call it. But we have a G rating. I got something here from Tom, says Thompson's much harder tool. Yes, the quality of the material that the gouge is made out of will determine its strength and its sharpenability, but also its ability to maintain an edge. So if you think I got these Harbor Freight tools and they're junk, don't get rid of them. Think about the specialty cuts you need to make, because you're still holding a piece of tool steel, and the shape it ends up in is up to you. I've got scrapers that were total junk. In fact, there's one tool I can never figure out what it was, but it was in the kit, and it made a fantastic bowl scraper. So we're getting a little bit about grinding wheels and grinding methods on the chat tonight. I maybe mistakenly said, when you buy a grinder at Lowe's or Home Depot, the big box stores, and Ronnie jumped in and said you only get the rough grind one, and Dane said you can use that for sharpening. Let's put it all in perspective for a second. You're using a grinding wheel on steel. Now, grinding wheel grinds away material. It generates a fair bit of heat, and the degree of the grit will matter on whether you get a good smooth grind or a pointed grind. And what's a pointed grind? Get a magnifier and look at the edge when it's rough, and you'll see the teeth that stand up. Now they're sharp, they feel sharp, but those teeth are standing up. That will impact your cutting and your finish. A finer wheel gives you a smoother edge. It's just as sharper, and that will slice better. And remember, the goal is to slice. And then what will you use for a grit? CBN wheels. CBN stands for can't be nicer. CBN wheels come in different grits. What do you have? The other day I looked. I have a 180 and a 480, and they came from a tool manufacturer. But I know a 180 and a 600 is very common in some turner shops. The 180 is made for reshaping tools, and the 600, that's what you put your edge on with. And you'd be surprised how little steel you throw on the floor and how little heat you generate with a CBN. Because it doesn't grind away the material, it slices it away in a different technique. And I mean, I've sharpened tools 2-3 passes, touch my hand with them, and then not even warm. If I did that with tool steel, I'd have some serious marks. Okay,